Hi, this is Bookish Talk, the shorter version of iBookBinding's podcast. And today our guest is Todd Davis. He already was a guest on our main podcast almost a year ago, and he was the second guest of our podcast. And at that moment, the situation in Massachusetts and in Boston was pretty dire. The lockdown was pretty complete, and yeah, we discussed lots of things, and Todd even was able to show us some techniques. But we wanted to return to him and to discuss how the things changed and how this past year passed. Hi, Todd.
Hello. Hello from Massachusetts.
Yeah, and I'm Stepan, and my co-host Pavel, as usually, joins us from Moscow. However, this is my first time recording from Paris, from France, after our move, so not so usual for me.
It's a bit unusual not to see you surrounded by 3D printers, so
yeah,
it is very private, very nice.
Yeah, and this is sort of half floor above our apartment, and I can't even stand here, so I'm sitting on the floor, and my laptop is standing on a bed right now, so it's very unusual conditions. Pavel had some questions, sort of to remind our viewers and to introduce you once again to our viewers, and I will pass it to him.
So it's the first time we two meet. I joined podcast a bit later. So could you tell me and our listeners a bit about yourself, about what you do, about how long you've been doing it, and what the situation was a year ago? So let's recap a bit.
Well, like I said, my name's Todd Davis, and I run Middlesex Bindery, which is in Lowell, Massachusetts, about 45-minute train ride north of here, up close to the New Hampshire border. I've been there, well, this July 1st of this year, I will have been there for 5 years. Prior to that, I went for 2 years to North Bennett Street School for a bookbinding program, and started up the bindery after that. I got really lucky on the bindery in that there was somebody retiring, wanting to get rid of all their stuff. So I was really lucky to be in a position to be able to do that. I had hoped to do this from there, but to give you like a little shop tour or something. But as part of our lockdown emerging process, last year everything was locked down solid, couldn't go anywhere, stuck in the house and all that. I was here for I think 4 months before I was able to get back to the bindery. And so my last day of work last year was March 17th, and I think I got back there somewhere after the 1st of August. So I spent the summer in the house, which was, I don't have AC, so it's pretty sweltering in here. But since then, things have been opening up slowly, sometimes a little too quickly, in my opinion. But one of the things that really shut down was the public transit. And still to this day, there are no trains on weekends. Excuse me. There are no trains on weekends, so I can't get to work on the weekends, even if I wanted to. Because I'd like to be there today. Today is the first outdoor market that they've had since the lockdown, and I'd like to go, but there's no way to get there, which is a shame. Come Monday, they're increasing the number of trains per day, so it's going to be a little bit easier to get there and back, because right now it's only every 2 hours, which really limits your workday. And the first one in the morning is at 8 o'clock, so I can't get there. It's 90 minutes from door to door. So I can't get to work till 9:30, and I'd like to be there a little earlier than that, but I can't. But starting Monday, 2 days from now, it's supposed to open up a little bit better. Work over the last year has sort of exploded. I'm not quite sure not quite sure what's happening, except I think an awful lot of people were sitting at home saying, I always meant to get that fixed, or I always wanted to do that. And as soon as the lockdown was up, they decided to have it done. So I've got a tremendous amount of work to do. It'd be nice to go there, extra long day, or, you know, weekend day or something.
So you told that work sort of exploded. Was it the accumulation of orders during the lockdown, or it happened after the lockdown ended, or the main part of the lockdown ended?
I got a few calls during the lockdown with a couple of people who were disappointed that I wasn't declared an essential service and wasn't open. But, you know, I'm not an essential service, so I was closed. But that was probably only 2 or 3 calls. So everything really has happened since reopening. And it's an enormous variety of things. Of course, all the typical Bible repair and that kind of Bibles and cookbooks, you know. But there's been a lot of people who, quite a few of them actually, who I think spent their lockdown going through their old photos and putting a photo album together that they wanted bound. There was one who had taken a tour of France and Switzerland 2 or 3 years ago and had all these digital photos that they went down and had printed and wanted it all bound up into a photo album for themselves. And some things like that. You know, there was one woman who wanted, her boyfriend had a favorite movie and she was able to get the script for the movie. So she had that all bound, bound for him, I think for a birthday, because his birthday happened to be Halloween. So it was appropriate for that movie, you know?
Yeah.
The demo that I had on our last time that we talked,
Yeah.
for the rounded spine boxes, that was finished, got that finished in August and shipped to the customer.
So you finished this order pretty fast after you opened up.
Yeah, within a couple of weeks. I mean, I was able to get a little bit of it done here, but you know, there were always troubles. There's nothing quite like working at the bindery. You've got all the tools that you want right there, and whenever you go elsewhere, you're always missing that one critical thing that you've got to have, and so you're come to a dead stop. So that kind of happened during the lockdown. So I got it all hauled back to the bindery and was able to get that finished and out of the way. So that was good. If nothing else, than just to free up some floor space in the bindery, because that was, you know, what was it, something like 30 boxes or something. It takes up a lot of room.
Yeah.
So get that shipped back. So that got finished finally in August. And other than that, it's mostly been individuals with a book or two. Some interesting stuff coming in, a lot of leather work, which is unusual. So I don't know if people are spending their support money with that, but I'd encourage that too.
Yeah.
And what about materials? What about supplies? Is it difficult to get your leathers, your papers, or has everything restarted as usual?
The answer to that is pretty much the same as the answer to everything. Yes and no. The people who are shipping me the supplies, the manufacturers and stuff, they're still fine. I have no trouble getting anything from them. The problem is the shipping companies. That's been a real nightmare. They are building a supply by, you know, the 4 main places: the post office, Amazon, UPS, and FedEx. And UPS and FedEx doesn't seem to want to deliver anymore. I've had more than one order just drop off the face of the earth. Nobody was ever able to find it. Other ones I found in a building down the street. It just seems they shove it off the back of the truck whenever they're tired of working for the day, I think. So the suppliers and the manufacturers and the vendors and stuff, they're fine. No problem there. It's the shippers. The post office, I don't know how much you know about US politics, but the post office is being destroyed from within. So the stuff actually comes, but it can come weeks late. There's a book cloth supply place in Hyannis on the other part of the state, excuse me, down on the Cape. And I ordered some samples from them because I got an order in that I needed to buy some new stuff. And I wasn't quite sure what it was. It was between 2 or 3 different things. It's kind of hard to tell from the website what exactly it is without actually touching it or looking at it and comparing it with the existing one that I had to match. So I ordered a sample, and 2 or 3 weeks later, this is from Hyannis, which should have taken, even just sticking a normal stamp on it, it should have taken 2 days. You can drive there in about 3 hours, But 3 weeks later, I called them and said, I don't know what's going on, but I never got it. And I kind of need to get moving on this project. And they're really nice down there. So they sent me a whole other sample. And then I think I called them on a Tuesday, and Friday I had samples, which was great. So I was able to check against the sample with the existing product that I had to match, and made my order. And then the next week I got another set of samples. So the first one was from that 3 weeks or so before.
Yeah.
And so it's just, trying to coordinate all that has not been the easiest. FedEx by far is the worst. UPS has sort of been trained. They used to deliver to your studio. Now they won't even come in the building. So as far as delivering, they sometimes will dump it in the lobby, but sometimes it's the lobby of the next building. Sometimes it's the company down the street. So you have like 4 or 5 places to check. FedEx doesn't bother delivering at all. I got an auction win from Paul Brubaker. I got an auction win from him for a brand new set of type. It never came. So there's like 50 pounds of printing type that's floating around, probably in the bottom of the canal somewhere. I don't know.
And what about the orders? Do people bring them to you in person and get them back the same way, or do they send it by post, by FedEx?
It's a mix. The building management for where I am, I'm in an old converted mill. There's 3 buildings. There's 250 studios in there, and I'm one of them on the 3rd floor. But the building management, when the lockdown happened, they locked the building. So if you were coming to the building as a customer, you had to have an appointment so that I could come down and let you in. So you call me from the parking lot, and I'll come down and let you in. It used to be from 8 to 5, the building was just open because there's a gallery in there and a whole bunch of other studios and stuff that you could just come in and go. But the building is now open again from Wednesday to Sunday. So if you're coming on Monday or Tuesday, you'll still need to call me. But a lot of it was by the mail. People tended to, when they made contact with me, I explained to them the US Postal Service has a thing called media mail, which is a very inexpensive way of shipping books, but you have to be very careful about what you put in the package. It can only be media. If you put in a letter of instructions, that's no longer media, and it's first class mail, which will cost you about 4 times as much. So if you just put in a book and a piece of paper with the return address and my address in the box, then you can send it media mail. And it's the difference between, $5 and $17 or something. So it's not insignificant. And then, which makes it nice to be able to return things for a very low shipping price, without saying, okay, here's your $50 repair and it's $20 to ship. That doesn't really go over too well. So a lot of it is by mail. It really kind of depends too on what it is that's being repaired, because those 1880s Bibles, are, they're 20 pounds. I mean, they're huge things with the ones with the ornate covers and all that stuff. So they're big and heavy, and I think they're probably just too fragile to send through the mail. It would just end up being dust by the time I got it. So especially with the mail, the way it is, it could be sitting on the shipping dock for, a week or two. So I'm not sure that would be a good idea. And then some other ones, like there's one repair that I have right now that is a class yearbook from Yale in 1866. So it's kind of in the same shape as those Bibles, the pages have all separated. And it was a yearbook, and it was for Yale, which is, an expensive school. So each page has one person on it. So there's a person on this page, person on that page, person on that page. So it's that hard, stiff card. So that was never sewn, it was just glued. So that's all come apart. So that needs to be repaired. The cloth that holds that stuff together tends to rot after about 100 years. So it needs some attention. And then there's one other one, kind of deciding whether I think it's okay, that I'm really interested in. And there's a guy who came in who's newly commissioned in the National Guard, and his CO or somebody got this book that he thought was important to him, and he passes it to each of his direct reports, and they pass it on and on, each reading it, and then inscribing the inside cover as they pass it on. Well, it's been passed on about 5 or 6 times now, and it was a commercial hardback to begin with, so it's in rough shape. So that's being redone, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah, this is beautiful to become a part of this tradition.
And I think it's going to turn out really well. I got a very, very nice piece of leather to cover it, and it's really, really looks nice. So I'm hoping that will be done the next couple of weeks and get that back to him. So I'm looking forward to that, because it's going to be the leather's really nice. It's even nice to hold, it's that slick stuff. It's all in Ranger green, and have to separate I don't know if you saw the picture, but I have to separate the dedication on the inside from the old cover so I can reincorporate it into the new one. So that was a little tricky, because it's the paste down that you're trying to separate from the board without tearing it to shreds.
Yeah.
And with projects like that, your hopes are for it to last how long?
Oh, this should be good for a very long. You mean after it's done? It should be good for a very long time. The only issue with it is that it's a modern trade hardback. So it's a flat back rather than sewn, and so the text block eventually could fail. Looking at it, it looks very sturdy, and it seems just fine, but it's not rounded, so there's always that potential for it to.
Yeah, if it crack between the pages somewhere, it will just continue falling apart
Right.
from this point.
And unlike those 19th century Bibles, I assume, those were probably hand sewn, so they should last forever.
The text blocks on those are fantastic. The only thing that's wrong with the text block on those old Bibles is the outermost pages that have had heavy wear or contact with the acidified leather, or sometimes the paste downs on those are not acid-free paper. So the outermost pages tend to crumble. But the inner text blocks the inner pages of it are usually in great shape. And there's very rarely anything wrong with it. It's the biggest problem with them, they all fail in the same way. And it's that the only thing really attaching it is 3 cords on a 3-cord sewn on 3 cords, and it's a very heavy book. It needs bigger cords or more cords. It's just not enough. And that thin little tiny piece of leather that goes from the spine to the front cover. And that's all that's holding it together. And that maybe the paste down paper or something. It's just not enough for a book that's that heavy. The covers of them alone is sandwiched cardboard, and it's probably 1/2 inch thick, 3/8 inch thick. The attachment structure is just not enough, and they all fail in exactly the same way. I've never really had one that needed to be resewn, other than occasionally someone will break the spine and 2 halves of it will have to be sewn back together, but I've never had to sew the entire block again. Just have to put 2 halves back together, and that's easy enough.
Just a week ago, we had a discussion with Emily Bell, a book conservator who wrote a series of articles in the Guild of Bookworkers newsletter about history of bookbinding, and we also just discussed attachment of book covers and book blocks, and how the ways how to attach changed over the years, and how 19th and 20th centuries introduced many ways to save money in book production, but this lowered the quality so much that books often start to fall apart before they are really being used.
Yeah, I kind of wonder whether they thought maybe they'd be out of business before somebody had to have it repaired so they wouldn't have to deal with it or something. But
yeah.
But you look at how they're made. I've seen pictures and things of binders of the time, and just a tremendous operation, because all of those books were hand sewn. The number of people and the number of them that they churned out was, a lot.
Yeah.
So just the sheer number of people that were involved in that enterprise is amazing. To keep them all employed, and and the sewing was women's work, so they had that side of the house, and then the other side doing the leather work and the gilding, if any, and it's just a lot of people. And now,
and as we know, this practice continued, at least in some places, until 1980s, because once again we had a talk with Kathy Abbott earlier this year, and she told us that when she wanted to become a bookbinder, she came to a large trade bindery, and in the beginning they wanted to put her to the ladies' room where the books are sewn, and they didn't really want her to become a part of this male-only crowd of bookbinders. There were 63 or 65 bookbinders, and all male besides her. So and it was only 25, 30 years ago. So really not long ago.
That's somebody that it might be fun for you to talk with too. It'd be Sam Ellenport, if you could get a hold of him. He's always good for an afternoon's conversation. He ran Harcourt Bindery for a long time until he retired and sold it to Acme. And a lot of the equipment that was left over after the merge was used to start the bookbinding department at North Bennett. And he's also on the North Bennett board and part of Technor Society and the rest of that. So he's a little bit hard to track down, but he's interesting.
Well, we will definitely add him to the list of our of people we want to talk to. Yeah. So you discussed your issues with USPS and other delivery services as well, and I can relate quite a bit with that to that because I had my share of trouble with sending orders to the United States this past year, and sometimes I guess the main issue was it was even not the time that it took for an order to be delivered, because I can say my customers, okay, I can do nothing about that. Earlier it was 2 weeks, now it's from 2 weeks to 3 months, and I can do anything about it. But the main issue was unpredictability, complete unpredictability of how the things will go, because sometimes packages could get through in 2 weeks as usual, but other packages could be delayed forever. And one of the main points where they were delayed by quite a lot was the US customs. And even the packages that were sent with expedited shippings, like I don't know, 5-day shipping or something like that, could get stuck on the customs for a month, and you just can do nothing about that. And your customer is like, well, I paid for expedited shipping. Where is my order? I need it soon. I need it yesterday. And you're like, I can send you another one, but it can get stuck at the same place for the same amount of time. I can do nothing about it.
I think the order that I got from you took, it was 2 or 2.5 months to get here, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. But you've got the tracking number and you can see it just sitting there, not moving.
Yeah. But the worst part was that after it leaves the Netherlands, it's in transit. And the U.S. Customs accepts it, but it doesn't add anything to tracking. So it adds anything to tracking only after it is formally accepted. It's not on the warehouse, but it's finally accepted for processing by the U.S. Customs. So this month, or I don't know how much time, it just somewhere in limbo, and you don't know what's happening. But then not only with the United States, there were some issues. I had packages that spent 4 or 6 weeks on their way to Switzerland or to Germany. So in Europe, it was a mess as well. So several packages lost on their way to Spain, just lost completely.
And also, didn't you end up with something like 15,000 magnets from China?
Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't a mistake. I became too worried at some moment that the company that delivered magnets to me is in the UK. So it was Brexit. It was all these delays, and at some moment I was too excited that some orders were delayed and I didn't get shipping on time, and then it was Brexit, and I wasn't sure that I even will get the magnets in the end. So I ordered some from China, and they came in 5 days.
Yeah.
But from the United Kingdom, it took like 8 weeks or something like that. So yeah. Well, okay.
You could just go pick them up easier.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes cheaper.
Yeah.
So did you have any other unusual orders over this past year since you started, not year, but since you started working once again last August?
Beyond just the regular repairs, the Bibles and cookbooks and stuff like that, there's a fair number of new things, which isn't something that I've had a lot of because I spend most of my time doing repairs. I enjoy the new stuff, but there's been more of that. Like I said, there's this one that's being rebound for this one customer, and then the movie script that was there, that was kind of cool. And a few things like that, several photo albums, people had things printed up from trips and done a couple of those, and those were fun. And that's been, by and large, an awful lot of it. I've still have four of those great big Bibles, plus the Yale yearbook yet to. Those are tough in that you almost have to do those sequentially, because you have 4 or 5 things going at once, because you do something, let it dry, work on the next thing, let it dry, and all that. But those Bibles are so big and they take up so much bench space.
Oh yeah.
That you can really only do one of those at a time with a couple of other little things. But now I have 4 or 5 with the Yale yearbook in-house to do those. So, each one takes up an entire bench almost, especially if there's any paper repair involved, because that just spreads everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard getting those out in any kind of timely manner, because each one can take a week or two, and that means the 5th one is already 2 months down the line. So,
you could use an assistant by the sound of it.
In some ways I could. Up until now, I wasn't really comfortable sharing the bindery with another person. I didn't want to have to walk around all day with a mask on. Because as it is, working by yourself, you just shut the door and not have to walk around with masks and things, except when you run down to the hall, to the sink or the restroom or something like that. Now I probably could, but there's all kinds of logistics involved with that, and I'm not sure I want to take that on. I'd be willing to consider subcontracting out some of the work, but there's no way I could take on an employee. It's just not feasible. The logistics in that are not on my side. So
especially now, it's not easy, especially in our new COVID world.
Yep.
Just adding an employee or some person who will help you with some processes. It's hard enough for a single entrepreneur or a single man business, a single person build business. But nowadays it's even harder and includes so many complications.
Well, hopefully with the vaccines rolling out, it will get easier eventually.
Well, I hope so, because before everything happened, I taught classes occasionally, and I really enjoy that. I'd like to get back to it, and I even have one lined up as soon as we can coordinate anything. But between not having trains on weekends when I normally would have the classes, because people who take the classes also have jobs, so they can't really come from 9 to 5 on Wednesday, So until that happens, I talked to a conductor yesterday who said that they're hoping to bring weekend trains back in May. Maybe a little bit sooner, maybe not. They let a few of the conductors go, so trying to restaff the weekend trains, they're coming up with staffing issues, but hopefully they'll work that out. The transit authority got their heads handed to them by the legislature. So they're working on increasing the service because they got $1 billion, $1 billion with a B dollars bailout from the government, and then they continue to cut service. And the whole purpose of the bailout was to continue service, and they just would rather put it in the bank.
And then I guess management got their bonuses as usual.
They did, yep. But at least a couple of our representatives said, no, you got this money to keep the trains running, you will keep the trains running. Starting tomorrow, service increases, and then hopefully soon the weekend, so I can get back to doing some classes, which I'm really looking forward to because I haven't been able to do one for a year, and I enjoy them. I have one guy who has an enormous collection of comics, I think, and wants a whole series of slipcases made and would prefer to do them himself. So he wants to take a class in making a slipcase so he can go do his wall for his collection. Because right now, I guess they're in cardboard boxes in piles, and his wife is not happy about that. So he's trying to get them all on a bookshelf somehow, but he needs to know how to make them. So giving him a prototype, so make sure the size is right, so then we can just get together for a day and show him how to do it, tell him where to get supplies or whatever. But he's coming from a long way away. He's way down on the South Coast. So it's not something that you can just, oh, let's come this afternoon, because, it's a 2-hour trip for him.
And what about book fairs and the like? Are you optimistic? Will there be any big gatherings or any size of gatherings, perhaps outside this summer?
The building that I'm in is having an outdoor thing today. Normally, the building that I'm in traditionally had open studios the first Saturday of every month, which is always a lot of fun. I personally don't benefit a whole lot from it because I don't typically have a whole lot of retail stuff for sale. I have a few things, but for me, sitting there working on that during the open studios, people don't realize that I'm there. They'll come by the studio and they go, oh, I have this thing at home that needs to be fixed, and they'll come back. They didn't know that they could have that done or that somebody would do that sort of thing. So they'll bring it back later. So that's always been a big benefit for me. Because of the nature of the work, I can't really participate in the outdoor markets. The other studios in the building in large part painters and ceramics and woodworkers, and there's a glass blower and that sort of art work. So those translate better to an outdoor market. Most of them for this summer have already been canceled, the bigger ones. The destination ones have all been canceled. Brimfield's been canceled. A couple of the other ones in New Hampshire and Maine have all been canceled already. I'm hoping that towards the end of the summer, we'll start being able to get back to the open studios at least. So I think by open studios here has never been big in the summer. People go away for the summer, or they'll have for something. And then, of course, it's an old mill building, so there's no air conditioning. And I can tell you, it gets sweltering. The position of my studio is such that the sun starts coming in my window around 2:30 in the afternoon. And the mill that was there was an old textile mill. The floor that I'm on I'm not quite sure what they did there, but whatever it was, there are steel plates in the floor. It's not a wooden floor, it's all steel plates. So at 2:30, my studio turns into a literal toaster oven, because you can feel the sun coming in the window, hits those steel plates, and you can feel it just radiate up, into your face. And it gets well over 90. What would that be? Well over 40, I guess, by 3 o'clock. And by 4 o'clock, you just got to get out of there. You can't take it anymore. Because there's usually a nice breeze in through the window, but as soon as the sun comes in, it stops. So it just, it is pretty brutal. So there are not a lot of open studios in the summer, but I'm hoping like maybe September-ish, maybe they'll get started again. I don't know.
Perhaps you could resurrect the medieval practice of sewing outside.
Yeah, it could do that. That's easy enough. And that is nice that it doesn't have a whole lot of equipment that you have to carry around with you. You only need 2 or 3 things. You need needles and thread, and maybe a sewing frame, depending on what you're doing. And that's it, that would work.
So last April, we discussed, among other things, that you obviously had some issues with the rent, because you had to continue paying the full amount, and your landlord didn't really want to to offer any solutions to that, because they also had to pay some, I don't know, mortgage or something like that. So I guess, well, we can see that you survived and you stayed in the same workshop. But how was it from this point of view for you? Did you return to your normal profits, and how is it in general, money wise?
Last year I was lucky in that I had actually rented out a bench to someone. Half of the rent was covered by the renter. She left in December, mostly for COVID reasons, plus she got another full-time job. We could have worked it out where she would be there nights and weekends, since there's no trains. She could be there nights and weekends. But now she's on a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job, which takes a lot out of you. And she was not comfortable coming to the building after dark, which is totally understandable considering where it is. So it just didn't really work out after December. And then the landlord did give a 1 month, charged half rent for 1 month last year. So that was something. Starting in January, though, this year, it's back to full price. I've been helped out quite a bit by last year being such a good year. The large job that I talked about with the boxes and stuff, that really carried me through the year. I don't see that repeating this year, but I've got an awful lot of small jobs, a lot more than last year. Last year, it was the one big job that carried me all the way through. Because also for, 4 or 5 months, there were no commuter rail passes either. So that's another $340 a month you don't have to pay, because you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Positive things
And
we
they
find in the global pandemic.
Yeah. And even then, they didn't even collect fares for the entire month of September. So you just get on the train and go. There's no tickets or anything. That helped a lot. Plus, the government came up through with a little bit of support for people, which unusually this time they included sole proprietorships, single person businesses, which had not been done before. Because typically, one-man businesses or one-person businesses are overlooked. They're only interested in, if you have 5 or more employees, then you qualify for this program. This time, though, I think the situation was dire enough that they made sure to include everybody. Got kind of screwed on the second one, but that's okay. I got part of it anyway. So things carried me through. Last year was actually a pretty decent year. We'll see how this year goes. I honestly don't know how it will go. If you have your magic 8 ball, it says signs look good, but who knows? If I can get the work done, because I think I told you this before, but before the lockdown, I'd been working a lot, 5 or 6 days a week, typically 12 hours a day or so. And when the lockdown came, it really took me about a month before I felt like I was rested up enough to want to go back to work. And I've just decided I don't want to be that tired anymore. I just don't want to be that exhausted. So at this point, I've pretty much decided I'm working 4 days a week. I do Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday and Friday, which gives me Wednesday to do all the stuff that you have to do when places are open. Shops that are only open from 8 to 5 or whatever, because there's a lot of those now. So that's been good, but it also, I'm still not quite used to scheduling things with 4 days versus 5.
Yeah.
It could go back up to 5 if I could get there on a Saturday, occasional Saturday or something, but we'll see if that happens. I don't know. But I kind of like this 2 Mondays and 2 Fridays a week. It's kind of a nice thing. You never get so totally run down that you feel like you just can't get out of bed anymore, which working 12-hour days by Thursday, you're just, I don't want to go.
Fun. Take a note. Take a note. Did you hear that?
Yeah. My current goal is to properly have 2 rest days per week, and I if I'm honest enough, I can say that I properly have 1 rest day a week at the moment. Well, now I don't have a business working, and so I have, but I still don't have enough rest days, I guess. But
but now you're unpacking and apartment hunting. That's a full-time job all by itself.
Yeah, that's true. And then I will need to register a new business. I will need to find a workplace, a workshop space, and it will be fun.
I read your note this morning. So have you not decided where you're going to land, or other than it's not going to be Paris?
We almost sure that it wouldn't be Paris, because Paris is more expensive, and and the apartments are usually smaller here, and we need all this space because both of us are working from home, and as it appears, we need more space because of that. And my wife doesn't want it anymore. That I have my workshop combined with our living room, because it usually just spills all over the place and you can't contain it. So she told me, like, you will have a separate room, and I will see nothing of your stuff outside this room. And I'm pretty happy with this approach, but it just means that we need more rooms in our apartment. So we found this nice, cozy, old apartment in I think it's a 4-story building or something like that, without an elevator, with creaky wood floors and all that stuff, and even with 2 chimneys in there, but we are not sure if they are working. But we need to get the confirmation from the landlord if they like us enough to allow us to move in. So we are sort of a bit nervous about this right now. We'll see how it goes.
But if you have creaky wooden floors, make sure you're on the top floor.
Yeah, that's true.
I found during the lockdown, I'm in a building with 11 condos, and I'm on the first floor. So they're on my side of the building. There are 4 above me, and the guy who's right directly above me has now started a home gym. So there have been times where the ceiling fan in the living room is like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, and I hope pretty soon we will be able to move there. But we need to buy some furniture. We need to get the internet connection, because it takes 2 weeks in France to get you connected, and well, it takes time. So I guess we're going to finish our talk, and it was definitely interesting to hear something about your new projects and how this year passed for you, because I'm sure this represents experiences of some other bookbinders as well, because we all have been hit in one way or another, but by this global crisis. You had an influx of orders. I had a lot of orders this past year, so I cannot complain about amount of money I got, but still there were a lot of other problems and issues we had to deal throughout this year, and well, some of these issues continue up to this moment, so we're not through yet, but hopefully it will get better with every month.
Well, things are looking up.
Yeah,
they are. The numbers here in the state are going the wrong direction at the moment, so everybody's very nervous.
In Moscow too, for the first time in months. Not that you can believe any of the official statistics, which makes it even more worrying.
Yeah.
But who knows? Who knows? Maybe it's just us getting used to it.
Yeah, and one of the things that's a little disturbing is the trains. This is the sports seasons have gotten all twisted around. So the North Station where my train goes into, up above it is the Boston Garden where the Celtics and the Bruins play, the basketball and the hockey teams. And they're starting to meet in person again. So the trains in on game nights have gotten uncomfortably crowded. I mean, for months there, I was like the only guy in the car. Because I have a reverse commute, because people are coming, I go out of town during rush hour where everybody else is coming in. So kind of have the train to myself. But now that they're having in-person games again, the trains are getting uncomfortably crowded. And of course, everybody likes to prime before the game. So they're all not,
yeah,
not entirely vertical,
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. The Garden has done a pretty good job so far of keeping their fans out of North Station, because even though it's the same building, North Station is the first floor and the Garden is up above. But they, unlike before, they're making everybody go outside to get into the Garden, because there's an inside way up from the train, but they have to go straight out. So you can actually get from the train to the subway without going through hordes of Celtics or Bruins fans or something. So that at least seems to be going well. So I'm hoping that with the increase in train service that will take care of itself starting tomorrow, but we'll see. Or I can take a later one on home game nights or something. But it seems to me the basketball season should be ending shortly. Hockey, I think, goes till June, or the playoffs go till June. I don't know how long the season goes. But we'll see. And everything's abbreviated anyway, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we'll hope for the best.
Yeah. And maybe next time we can get together, I can talk to you from up there and give you a little shop tour.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I guess we will return to you with another shorter talk, and well, you'll give us a tour of your workshop. Because this time, yeah, we planned to talk yesterday, but yesterday when we came back home after all these apartment tours, we were just floored, and we went to sleep at 7. And yeah, it's usually we go to sleep at midnight, so it was completely untypical for us.
Well, at least you're in the same time zone. you didn't have to
yeah, that's
move
true.
to New Jersey or whatever your original plans were.
Yeah, this is true.
Hmm.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Todd. And I wanted to invite all of our viewers and listeners to join the crowd on Patreon, because the money that we get from our patrons allow us to edit these podcasts, and we have a lot of plans for this year to bring other languages and many more guests, and some of them talking in foreign languages, so that we need translation for that. So if you're ready to support us, pledges start with only $1, £1, or €1, depending on your location, and it helps us a lot. So thanks a lot for your help if you are already a patron of iBookBinding. Thanks to all our viewers. Please share, like, subscribe, join the crowd, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Oh.